Yeah, just quickly, the image we see on our screen right now, that's Emily Damari. Her family approved the publication of that photo, stating that she lost two of her fingers by Hamas terrorists on the October 7th attack when she was kidnapped from her home in Kfar Aza. And so you can see her smile of victory in
that is the sign of victory, isn't it?
Indeed, and following the hell, as you mentioned, that she was released from in Gaza. Going back to that hell, the images, the statements at least coming out from there, it appears they are living in a different reality from the other statements that we've been hearing throughout the day. Abu Ubaida, the military spokesperson of Hamas's military wing, the Al-Qassam brigades, issuing a video statement, something that he has not done too much over the past few months, obviously claiming once again victory in reaching this ceasefire deal, saying that the October 7th attacks changed the face of the region, saying that the great sacrifices of our people, that is his words, will not go in vain. We made every effort to preserve the enemy's hostages, even though we can see the condition that they're released. I did find interesting in Abu Ubaida's speech today that he said that the responsibility is growing on our people and resistance in the West Bank, calling on Hamas supporters and militants to escalate their confrontations against Israel.
Just as we're seeing renewed violence in Jenin, where there was a shaky kind of ceasefire in place between the Hamas terrorists.
Yeah, just 2 days after they reached a ceasefire, ending a 44-day siege. The agreement, this is just a quick side note, the agreement between the Jenin Battalion and PA security forces was that the Jenin Battalion would hand over their weapons and the Palestinian security forces would enter and dismantle explosives in the West Bank camp.
And I just
not a single weapon has been handed over until this moment.
Absolutely. Just the pictures you're looking at now, this is this afternoon. This is in Gaza. This is when the three young women were handed over to the Red Cross. Those are Red Cross vans. You can see the flag there of the Red Cross.
Armed militants standing chaotic on top of the
terrorists
Red Cross.
Are climbing on the truck. They are firing their guns. They are all. It's a completely chaotic situation. We can only imagine the terror of those young women as they are taken to the Red Cross vans. And I want to point out, because I've been looking through international media, and there is that photograph, which is now iconic, of Doron Steinbrecher surrounded by masked armed men, a tiny, frail young woman in a pink jumper, surrounded by men. You look through the international media. Interestingly, only Al Arabiya, the Saudi outlet, has chosen to lead with that image. You're seeing all of the other Western media, international media, choosing, I don't know, softer images. And I'm wondering if that is an editorial choice, because what we saw earlier paints a very different picture of the situation in Gaza than the one we have been told about for many, many months, about the suffering in Gaza and about the situation there. I mean, this paints a very different picture. And I'm wondering if Hamas has switched the narrative, from one, when it was talking to the Western audience, to the Americans, to the Europeans, and saying we need aid, we need help, we're suffering, to this, we're victorious, we have defeated the mighty enemy, and so forth. It's an interesting editorial choice, I think.
It is for sure an editorial choice. And one other thing, Doron was captured, some astute social media users caught that she was wearing a necklace with a Palestine flag on it. Just another example to the cynicism put forth by Hamas. Indeed, what Hamas was trying to illustrate today were images of victory rather than the destruction and the complete dissolution of many areas in the Gaza Strip, quickly shifting the narrative. As you mentioned. Now, the images, I think this is a closing circle for these hostages, because when they were dragged in to the Gaza Strip on October 7th, they were also greeted with jeering Palestinians, hitting them, spitting at them. And now when they were released after 15 months in Hamas captivity, in inhumane conditions, that same Red Cross that miraculously appeared on the day of their release didn't once make sure to check on their condition, whereas when it comes to Palestinian security prisoners in Israeli jails, they get free, unlimited axis. Obviously, we're not trying to draw any comparison, but if we're talking about the responsibility of the international community and bodies like the International Red Cross, that is one example. And so marking their final moments in the hell of Gaza, being sent off by these hundreds of Gazans who, on a day of a ceasefire, rather than being together with their families, trying to search for their loved ones, chose to go and celebrate the release of hostages.
It was far more chaotic, I don't know if you agree, than the first hostage handover that we saw back in November 2023.
So there were a few venue selections during that week-long release of hostages. There was one that was in central Gaza. I think it was of Noor. It was one of the other hostages, not Noor Gamari. She was released she was liberated in a rescue operation, but definitely not the majority of the scenes that we saw. And it raises the question, what should we expect from the coming releases? Because this is going to be a staggered, dragged on process that Israelis, not only the families of the remaining 94 hostages who are continuing to be in this emotional roller coaster of ups and downs, highs and lows, wondering whether not their loved ones will indeed be released or in what condition. Right. These are scenes that are very difficult for Israelis to stomach, but the images, the flip side of them reuniting with their families is entirely worth it, and an entire nation is supportive and happy to see them come out.
It really has been an emotional roller coaster. I know that's a cliche, but I'm not sure there's any better way to describe it. Hamas was supposed to deliver the names of the hostages due to be released the night before. It only came, I think, 2 hours before they were actually released, really wringing out every last opportunity to inflict psychological torture on the families of the hostages until the last moment. And of course, Israelis will have to go through this now week after week for 6 weeks if the ceasefire holds, and we hope that it will, for the sake of those hostages and their families, because we remember the last hostage release deal collapsed near the end.
Some of these who were released today were supposed to be in that deal, and also some hostages who were killed, who were executed by their Hamas captives. For example, Carmel Gat, Eden Yerushalmi, who were murdered in the tunnels in Rafah. They were supposed to be in that collapsed deal. And that's so very, very many of these families of the hostages are also watching this with a sense of a missed opportunity, that they could have seen their loved ones come out in this deal. But obviously they are happy for the families of those who did come out. But you talked about this staggered release. So the next release, Hamas confirmed, is going to be on Saturday. 4 women are expected to be released in this next phase. And following that, that's day 7.
And there's already speculation about who that will be, but of course there's no confirmation.
There won't be any confirmation until the day before, unless Hamas chooses to inflict once again their psychological warfare after the 7th day. From beginning day 14, there will be 3 hostages released every 7 days. First, the female hostages, and then the men, and only then will there be the deceased hostages, because until this moment, not only do we not know who will be released when, but also who is alive and who isn't. Hamas is dragging this to the absolute final moment to maximize their psychological warfare against Israelis and mainly the families of the hostages.
That's right, Ariel. Thank you.